she's using that chaos to stay healthy and dashing out of the way of the more powerful AoE effects with the mobility that she gets. This brings us to Orphea's second basic ability, which is Chomp. You heard Lana talk about this a little bit earlier, so let's dive right in and take a look. Orphea materializes a vicious maw around herself that slams down on enemies in front of her, dealing heavy damage. The concept art that you saw earlier showed off this super awesome monster that we just knew we had to use as a part of her base kit. Once we got it in the game and we were testing it, it felt like a super awesome fantasy moment, and the big delay before the damage made it feel extremely satisfying and visceral to land. Combined with her Q, her kit was starting to feel amazing. A typical playtest had Orphea dashing around the edges of a fight with Shadow Waltz before dashing in on an unsuspecting enemy and sealing the deal with Chomp. When you finally hit with this ability, you really feel like you earned it, and your enemies should too. This brings us to Orphea's last piece of her base kit, which is her E ability, Dread. Orphea releases a wave of dark magic that deals damage to all enemies that it passes through, and at the end of its path, it violently erupts after a small delay, dealing increased damage and also slowing enemies in the area. Dread was another piece of Orphea's base kit, like her trait, that we iterated on heavily throughout her development. Initially, the delay was at the beginning, which helped to match the theme of her other abilities having delays, but in testing, we found that it was just a little bit too difficult to use. So we made a simple change, and we took the delay from the beginning of the ability and changed it to be at the end of the ability. And this felt much better to us, and actually allowed Orphea to more reliably gain chaos from her trait. So as we built out her base kit, we knew in the back of our minds that we really needed some epic moments for the monster within Orphea to be unleashed. And it made a lot of sense to us for these moments to be reserved for the heroics, as this is where we see Orphea's true potential. So with that said, her first heroic ability is Eternal Feast. Orphea unleashes the monster within herself, dealing damage to all enemies in an area. If a hero is hit, the ability repeats itself again and again and again and again, until either all the heroes in the area are dead or they fleed from the area entirely. And this heroic really feels like Orphea is unleashing her inner rage on her foes. Once we started using it, it was super fun for us, and it felt like an epic monster moment, not only for Orphea and her allies, but also for her enemies. It forces them to scatter from the area, which opens them up to being picked off as they flee, or being devoured if they don't. For the second heroic, we knew we wanted to still use the monster, but we wanted it to feel just as epic as the first. Initially, we tried an idea very similar to Eternal Feast, except that instead of repeating forever, the monster would grow to an enormous size and deal heavy damage to everyone in the area, as well as stunning them. However, once we started playing with that, it felt a little bit too vanilla, and it kind of felt too similar to Eternal Feast, so we made two simple changes. One of the changes we made was we changed the shape from a circle to a rectangle, and then we thought it was really cool, we added a pull before the stun went off. This is what we ended up today. Orphea manifests a set of crushing jaws at the targeted location, pulling enemies together, damaging and stunning them. And where Eternal Feast is great for providing disruption and damage in team fights, Crushing Jaws is great for setting up big plays and initiating on enemies. Orphea already had really cool combo moments in her base kit with Dread and Shadow Waltz and dashing in with Chomp, and we really wanted to enhance that combo and give Orphea a way to have some self-setup of her own. So I hope you all enjoyed this look at how we created a brand new hero born from the Nexus. Now that we have a base kit and heroics finalized, it's time to jump into talents. Alex is going to be talking you through some of her talents, builds, and play styles. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Nyman. I'm a senior live game designer on Heroes of the Storm. So while the rest of the team is busy designing heroes and creating the art and lore of the Nexus, my team focuses on the finer details of the gameplay of the heroes. And by that, I mean we're in the corner playing the game all day long. But luckily, they let us do that. So we playtest all of our heroes a ton, and Orphea was no different. Now, in the same way that Orphea's character and her visuals sort of revealed themselves over the course of her development, we found that as we continued to playtest Orphea, a lot of her gameplay styles begin to solidify themselves. So I want to talk about just 2 of those today, as well as a few of the talents that support these different ways of playing the hero. So the first gameplay style I want to talk about is this concept of a ranged dancer. Now this way of playing Orphea, she likes to rely on Shadow Waltz's dash to primarily jump away from enemy heroes, keeping them at distance, doing the majority of her damage with Shadow Waltz and Dread. Now this is a great way to play Orphea if the opposing team doesn't have a lot of good ways to close the gap with you, and also they have a lot of heavy ways to disable you, and therefore you don't really ever want to get close to begin with. So if you're facing opponents like Arthas or Garrosh, it'd be a good way to play Orphea. Now the other way to play Orphea that we found, or one of the other ways to play Orphea we found, is this aggressive monster play style. Now this Orphea likes to jump forward with Shadow Waltz's dash, jumping into the close range of the opponents, doing the majority of her damage from melee with her W ability, Chomp. Now this is a great way to play Orphea if you can't really afford to kite opponents because they're just too mobile, or if they don't have a lot of crowd control to punish you if you do try to jump in close. So if you're facing opponents like Genji or Lucio or Zeratul, it's a great way to play Orphea here. Okay. So let's talk about a few of the talents that support the ranged dancer playstyle first, starting with On Point and Allegrissimo. So these are 2 talents that augment Shadow Waltz, giving it increased benefit if you hit with the end of the ability, kind of the end claw of your skill shot. If you do so, not only will you do more damage, but you'll greatly reduce the cooldown of Shadow Waltz, making you even more mobile, kind of letting you dance around the battlefield, keeping opponents at range, which is your goal. Now, this is a great way to play, but if opponents can close the gap, you suddenly can't get the benefits of these talents anymore. So if that's the case, it'd be great if there was another talent maybe that created distance between our opponents and ourselves. In that case, we brought back something from an earlier part of Orphea's kit during development, but this time as a talent the players can opt into. So the Backbiter talent makes it so the sheer force of chomping enemy heroes propels Orphea backwards, putting her at distance once again to get the benefits of a talent like On Point. So Orphea will be dancing around the battlefield once again with Backbiter, but this is all great and all, but what if we don't just want to use Chomp when we're playing this sort of ranged dancer playstyle to protect ourselves? Occasionally it'd be great if we could take a Chomp out of opponents from range. In that case, we have the Lurking Terror talent. So now this causes it so that after casting Dread, for a couple seconds after it explodes, you can activate your 1 key to cast Chomp from a distance. You'll see here in the video. So not only will this deal big damage on unsuspecting opponents, but it's actually a big surprise because you also still have your Chomp cooldown preserved. It's a separate cooldown entirely, meaning you can still get the benefits of the Backbiter talent we discussed previously. So all of this combines with this graceful dancer Orphea. She maneuvers around the battlefield, dodging enemy skill shots, and as long as she can continue to land her Shadow Waltz, she'll continue to be very maneuverable, being a headache for opponents to deal with on the battlefield. Okay, so that's one way to play Orphea. But what if you like to be a little more aggressive? All of us, every once in a while, like to let out a little bit of our teenage angst and give opponents a little bit of lip, and maybe a lot of teeth, too. So we have the aggressive monster, might be right up your alley. So we can see here, Orphea's going to be very, very aggressive, jumping toward enemy heroes, taking a bite out of them and Chomp. So let's look at some of the talents that support that way to play the hero. First, we have the Insatiable talent. So you have a hunger, and you want to chomp people all the time. The Insatiable talent is for you. This causes whenever you chomp an enemy hero, they reduce the cooldown of the ability to just 2 seconds, meaning you can chain these chomps together. Now this is great, and you can chain them all together for not only lots of damage, but also a good amount of trait stacks overflowing chaos that we're going to need since we're so aggressive. It's our way to keep ourselves alive. So there's also another talent called Abyssal Symbiosis that also synergizes with how often we're casting Chomp. This causes it so that now that hitting Chomp on an enemy hero doesn't just give 1 stack of overflowing chaos, but the maximum, all 3. So as long as you can continue to weave basic attacks in between each of your Chomps, you'll be doing lots of damage as well as healing yourself a lot. Really important since we're so aggressive with this way of playing the character. Now, since we're chomping so much, we're in the middle of the enemy team fairly frequently too. So it'd be great if we had another talent that could take benefit from that. So here we have Invasive Miasma. Now you can activate Invasive Miasma, and after a short delay, Orphea explodes, draining the life force of all nearby enemy heroes, dealing damage as well as healing Orphea and giving even more overflowing chaos. That's why it's overflowing. It's just everywhere. So combine all this together, and you have this aggressive monster Orphea that jumps toward enemy heroes and is this chain-chomping machine. As long as she continues to land these chomps and gets her basic attacks off, she'll out-sustain her opponents. So that's it for Orphea. Just a second before we wrap up, we're going to take your questions. So if you have any now about our live game design, about our hero designs, or about the art and lore of the Nexus, please line up at one of the microphones and we'll answer anything we can. Now, we had a ton of fun creating Orphea. We hope you have just as much fun playing her. You can play her right now on the show floor, or if you don't have the opportunity to because you're not here, or maybe you just are busy, a lot of things going on this weekend, we get it, you can play her starting next week on the PTR. Thank you, everyone, for coming to our Hero Deep Dive panel on Orphea, the Heir of Ravencourt. See you in the Nexus, everybody.
Let's do this. I don't think we have too much time, so go ahead.
Hi, I just have a simple question. You keep referring to Orphea as the first hero of the Nexus. So does that mean that we're going to have more heroes of the Nexus?
I'll tackle that one. You know, Heroes very much for us is still a game where we want to bring in Blizzard fantasy. Like, that is our #1 priority, you know, bringing in heroes that we know the community knows and loves, and have those heroes across Blizzard games fight one another. Would we ever do this again? I'm not going to say no, but our priority, I think, is to get back to, get back to business, bringing in heroes we know the community wants. For us, like I said, I think this experience with Orphea was a great opportunity for us to shore up the identity of Heroes as a standalone game, and using Orphea as a great vehicle and sort of pinnacle for that effort. But we have a lot of heroes from other games that we want to bring in. So
all right,
we're going to be focusing on that. But I'm not going to say no. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Are you comfortable with how elaborate Orphea's animations and graphics are compared to ancient heroes such as Arthas and Uther, who look quite dated and old?
Arthas and Uther are, and a lot of our older characters are sort of points of pride for us because they were early in development. We had a lot less time because we had to make so many heroes. That said, we have heard lots of feedback, and we do know that they need some love. And it's a constant balance between the desire to go back and touch up these things. How long has Heroes been in development? Almost 5 years now. And the desire to create new, compelling content. And like we just said, we have like this long list of things we want to get through. So it's a balancing act between wanting to go back and also wanting to create more that's new.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi. I was wondering, I'm a Formula 1 main, and this kid is feeling a bit lackluster right now. Do you have any plans to update it or something about it?
I'm sorry, who did you main?
Illidan.
Illidan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Illidan, we know that we haven't seen him quite as much recently in the meta, and it's something we watch. Honestly, he's probably like a tiny bit away from just kind of becoming right in a mainstay again. And sometimes, so we could maybe go heavy-handed with kind of getting in there. But overall, we're pretty happy with the way the character plays. If anything, you might see maybe some small tuning adjustments here and there if we think we need to. But I think right now we're kind of on a wait and see because while it could be easy for us to kind of get too heavy-handed and really bring it, as soon as a character isn't seen for a couple of weeks in HTC, we buff them and they're okay. We like to let the kind of meta figure itself out and sort of make developments on its own. So I won't say that we won't make any changes to Illidan, but he's right there. He's right in kind of the borderline where we're not sure we need to do anything quite yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Fantastic job first.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Orphea is our first playable Nexus character.
Yeah.
But we've got lots of other characters that have been added, like the Gravekeeper, like Ka,
Absolutely.
who are very intimately tied to Battlegrounds. So I'm wondering, what's the challenge in creating a character tied to a map versus a character that we're going to play as? And do you think we'll see characters like Lady Nightshade as heroes someday?
It's a really great question. So it sounds like your question is, what is the challenge in terms of how we approach Battlegrounds?
The design space.
Yeah, yeah.
There's different things you're taking in.
Yeah, yeah. I think we approach all of our characters with a great bit of care, and even the skins we choose, we approach with a great bit of care. I like to joke around and say everything is real. So I think even when we approach Battlegrounds, we think long and hard about, what is that voice on Braxis holdout, and what's the deal? Who is this person? So we spend a good amount of time on that. Obviously, it's going to differ from a hero that we're bringing into the game, just because we put so much energy and so much time into that, and it's in the hands of our players. But we still take it very seriously. Will we see them manifest in the game? I mean, you do see Blackheart, right? He's one that we've seen. I don't think we're opposed to a future Battlegrounds doing similar things to what we've done previously, like Blackheart's Bay. But yeah, we don't have a lot to say in that regard at the moment.
Okay.
So yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's all the time we have today for questions. Sorry everybody didn't get a chance to. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Hero Deep Dive.
Oh,
Sorry.
thanks so much, guys. Sorry,
guys.
kind of talked too much.
Thank you for attending Heroes of the Storm Deep Dive. Up next, Voices of Overwatch.
Story.
So for Ashe, well, actually, so for Ashe, I wasn't involved with the primary hero development, but I think for some of the other skins, that's definitely happened before, right? Usually it'd be like we have a cool story for the hero, and then we're like, oh, what skin could we make out of her story, right? But that's definitely, I think that's happened before, where sometimes you have a cool skin and we maybe retroactively tie it back into the story. I don't have a specific example, but that could happen. I think our development process is pretty organic. If there's good ideas.
It will happen. If I could dive in there, it will sometimes happen from design, not even within feedback from the art team, but design will say, oh, we tried out this E ability and that wasn't fun. We're going to give this hero another E ability, and instead of a gun, they need a whip or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, we go back to Q and say, I know you spent a week on that gun and it looked awesome. We really like it. It was perfect, but it needs to change. That happens quite a bit. Probably every other hero has some major kind of design rework that requires us to go back to the concept stage and redo it.
One of the things that I also like about our team philosophy is that good ideas come from anywhere. It's really not that design informs it all the time, or story informs it all the time, or concept does. It's a very free-flowing thing where we collaborate a lot, and it's pretty much the best ideas make it to the top that way.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great question. Yeah, over here.
Hi. I wanted to know, between all three departments, what is the most challenging hero to work with?
Ooh.
Ooh.
All right, so Q, when you say, hey, we need a skin for, what makes you go, oh?
Bastion. So for those of you who don't know, Bastion, the way it's rigged, I don't know how you guys did this, but it actually works. He actually, 90% of what he does when he transforms into a turret, it actually works. I think somebody in our office 3D printed a Bastion from our in-game model, and you could actually transform it. It's pretty cool. Which means, though, there's a lot of limitations when it comes to, Bastion, and and a lot of, because of budget issues, a lot of when he transforms into a turret and into a tank, it's a complete model swap. So then we have to build the tank design out of the pieces that already exist on the base character, which is very hard to do when you're also trying to put the theme on the skin itself and also make it look like Bastion, but not too close to the other skins. So Bastion usually takes a long time, and even after we're done with the concept, what'll happen is 3 months later, our outsourcer will come back and be like, hey, I need a better view of whatever, and we have to redesign half of it. It's a lot of paint over, a lot of back